Hello and welcome to the African Community Forum. My name is Orla Fori and I'll be your host for today. The objective of this program is to inform the African community about the resources available for better integration within the community. We kick off this year's program with the various government representatives who represent the African community to talk about their agenda for the year. My first guest is Mr. Mamadou Samba. Mamadou Samba is the Director of the Mayor's Office on African Affairs in Washington, D.C. Welcome to the show today, Mamadou Samba.
Thank you.
You're coming from the Mayor's Office on African Affairs for the Washington, D.C. area.
Yes, I am.
Tell us, what is that office about?
Yes, so the Mayor's Office on African Affairs was established in 2006 following the community's demand for an institution or some kind of a structure to support them in terms of capacity building, welcoming new immigrants, and helping them navigate the very complex U.S. System.
Right.
And so the office was created in 2006. And our mission is to serve as a liaison between the growing African community and district government agencies to ensure that they have full access to all services and opportunities and information that is available to the District of Columbia. For any other residents, we ensure that those opportunities are also available for the African community. And so we do our work through intense community engagement, through a multitude of programs, including capacity building programs, multicultural awareness, where we highlight the very rich heritage of the African community, youth engagement, and also a number of collaboration with government agencies and community-based organizations. And we also do that through our community grants program, where we fund community-based organizations to run programs that are aimed at closing gaps in terms of health, education, technology, and so on and so on.
Now, I know you have people helping you on this commission.
Sure.
Talk about the commission and the role they play in helping you execute your functions.
Sure, yes. So the commission was also created at the same time as the office was created, and the commission has 15 board members from various African countries. It is very diverse when it comes to origin, language, and culture. And so the commission serves as an advisory board to the Office on African Affairs and essentially to the mayor. And their role is to bring to the attention of the office, district government agencies, the council, and the mayor on any issues that are relating to the African community. Issues of abuse, where services are needed, where the challenges lay. And so they serve as advisory groups to us. And together we collectively work to address those issues through either policy, programming, and partnership with other organizations.
Interesting. Now, we're in a new year, and let's do a flashback. Look at some of your accomplishments in last year, 2015.
Yeah.
Could you highlight some of these?
Yeah, so it is a new year, and so in 2015, we've had great accomplishments. I mean, in 2015, we started with much community engagement and going out to the community and getting them involved in the mayor's budget engagement. In a sense, the mayor believes that instead of putting together your budget and asking the people, you should ask them first before you put together your budget. And so we started by getting the African community out in the community to those budget hearings to have their say on what the budget should look like. And then so we went from that and we started to engage the community. We hosted a number of events when it comes to at first there was a lot of discussion about how our community doesn't get access to grants information. So we hosted a 2-day workshop to teach African nonprofit organization on how to research a grant, how to write a grant, how to manage a grant. And so we partnered with agencies like ABRA, which is the Alcoholic Beverage Administration, to talk to African business community on what do they need to know when running a business? Where do they go to get a license? What do they need to know about either, for example, you have some who will sell alcohol after hours. What will happen if that happens? And I'm also happy that in 2015, we hosted the very first, I think in this region, the Young African Connection Summit in partnership with Howard University and President Obama's young African leaders who come from the continent for a 6-week training. We hosted a summit and we talked about how we need to be engaged, how we need to volunteer our time. We discussed civic engagement and how we need to make connections. And the very next day, we also hosted the very first Mandela Day of Service. I think this is the
Interesting.
first time we've celebrated in the district, where we recruited about 85 volunteers to come in. And Nelson Mandela's was, on his birthday, he wanted it to be a day of service.
Right.
So we went out in the community and we volunteered clean up the neighborhood. And that was the very first time we did so. And also we went ahead and we tackled capacity building. We looked at where are the gaps in our community. And technology was one of those areas where we thought, we know that there's a big gap. And so we were inspired by the mayor talked about coding for girls. And so we launched the very first African Diaspora Coding Academy. And it's the only of its kind in the entire United States that I know of, where we partnered with the Office of the Chief Technology Officer. And we went and got other partners like Coders for Africa. And now we are training 120 Africans on how to develop mobile applications, web development, how to write HTML code, and it's very exciting.
That's interesting.
And so, and this is something that we sort of thought was important. And also we close out the year with the establishment of the African Community liaison unit with the police department, where we have police officers who will be working directly with us to address public safety concerns of the African community.
You seem to have chalked quite a considerable amount of successes in the 2015 calendar year.
We have a lot more to go.
Let's look into the 2016 calendar year. What are some of your goals and aspirations for this new year?
They stay the same. Our goal is to sort of grow everything we've done so far, and to strengthen our partnership with, like, Montgomery County, for example, other government agencies, because we know there's 120 Africans who live in this region, right after New York. And so this area is becoming more and more the top destination choice. So it is important for us to strengthen those relationships. And so we hope to, in 2016, to keep doing the same thing we've done in 2015, and hopefully do it better and do it a lot more efficient.
How can the community engage with the DC, Mayor Office of African Affairs?
And yeah, definitely. I mean, they can engage in multiple ways. I've made it a point to go out to the community as many times as I could, to let them know that the office is here available for them. So they can come to our commission meetings, which is held the first Wednesday of each month. They can come to our events. They can sign up to our newsletter. They can visit our website, which is oaa.dc.gov, where they can sign up on a newsletter. They can come to the office. We have an open door policy. I mean, we are all over the place. And we also make sure we work across boundaries. I make it a point to go a lot to Montgomery County, where there's a lot of Africans, to sort of make sure that to let them know that we are also here. Because you have to understand, there's a lot of Africans in Montgomery County, for example, but throughout the day, between 9 to 5, half of them come to DC to work or do something. So we need to work with them to ensure that they know that we're here to work and support them as much as possible.
You pointed out the fact that, which is obvious, there are a lot of Africans in the Washington, D.C. area and Maryland, especially Montgomery County. How important is it for these Africans in the community to be politically engaged, and how can they use that engagement to reflect on their lives in the community?
Yeah, I mean, we need to be, obviously, that's very important, because we're taxpayers. We come here, we work here, our kids go to school here, we pay our taxes, which is used to build schools, bridges. So we have to have a say into all of those things. We can't just afford to just stay back and hope that somebody will speak on our behalf. We need to tell our own stories. They need to understand, for example, how certain policies need to be culturally sensitive to our community. They need to understand, for example, why the barriers exist, for example, when it comes to healthcare. They need to understand that there are certain things that we don't talk about in our community. When you look at the fact that 25% of Africans in DC lack health insurance in this area, there's a reason for that, because some of us, we don't understand the complicated healthcare system. Most of us come from countries where healthcare is either government sponsored, if it exists. All of a sudden we come to the United States, where you have to deal with HMOs and PPOs and POSs and fees for service. In addition, we don't speak the language. It's very complicated. So they need to understand that in order to help us better.
Now, briefly, tell us some of the challenges you faced in carrying out your duties.
Not a lot of challenges I face. I mean, it's challenging in the sense that the work it's not accomplished very fast. It takes time, it takes patience. But I don't think it's very challenging. I'm very passionate about what I do. Anybody who's known me for a while would tell you that I've been in the African community for a really long time. And I think being an immigrant myself has been a good preparation for me to be where I am, because in carrying out my duties, I look at my time when I was in college where I needed those resources.
Right,
and there wasn't
right.
an office on African interface back then. So now when I'm in a position where I'm able to help my community, I mean, it is done in a very passionate way. So the challenges I can deal with.
Before we leave you, tell us briefly, what are some of the resources available to, you know, Africans in the community that they can take advantage of?
Well, you know, we cannot lay out all the resources here, but I mean, again, I go back and say our office is an outlet for all of those resources when it comes to transportation, education, public safety, health. I mean, the whole host of them, that any resource that the government provides is available to our office. We may not be able to do it directly, but we are in a good place to help navigate or help guide Africans toward where the resources are. And we provide them with the necessary capacity building resources like language access, like interpretation, to be able to take full advantage of those resources.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so
Mamadou
much.
Samba.
Thank you for having me.
For more information on the Mayor's Office on African Affairs, log on to oaa.dc.gov.